Are eyelash serums causing under eye bags, specifically under eye hollowness? A lot of people who have been using things like GrandeLAsh or Latisse have not only gotten thicker, fuller lashes, but they've said, wait a minute, why do my under eyes look so hollow? And there was specifically one girl on a podcast who was talking about how all of these people are going for under eye fillers because they feel like their under eyes are sunken in after using these lash serums for a long time. Well, there's actually some truth to this, and it's rooted in science. So we're going to talk about all things lash serums, prostaglandin analogs, how this actually relates to aspirin, how this ties back to prostate glands, and what you should know if you're using some of these, and how to get those fat pads back if you feel that you've lost them. Because a lot of people are kind of freaking out. But let's talk about this. Before we start getting out our lash serums and applying them to our pretty lashes, we do have to note that this is happening in both over-the-counter as well as prescription lash enhancing serums. I love a good lash enhancing serum. But this is happening in both over-the-counter and prescription stuff. But this isn't actually surprising. And the reason why is because of the science of how these lash growers were actually created. Now, let's talk about that and what this has to do with a prostate gland. These lash enhancing serums were actually created on accident, but before prostaglandin analogs were used in the eyes, they were actually found to work throughout the entire body. In 1935, there was this Swedish physiologist who was studying men's semen samples and specifically found these prostaglandins created by the prostate gland. And these prostaglandins, while in the prostate gland, yes, are actually all over the body. And specifically, they act like these hormone-like molecules. You know hormones, you know that they act all over the entire body to cause changes, and they can turn little things on or off or cause the body to do or produce certain things or to halt that production of certain things. So while yes, he found them being created in the prostate gland, they're also in bone, they're in muscle tissue, all over our entire bodies. Well, guess what? Prostate glands are actually related to aspirin. Whoa, no, that's not what I meant to say. When you see prostaglandins, not prostate glands, are actually stopped by things like aspirin. You see, when people were studying headaches and pain, they actually found that prostaglandins were partially responsible for some of the things that happen to our body, such as those headaches. And they found that using aspirin could actually stop prostaglandins from being made and therefore help to kind of blunt some of that pain. Now, while that's all well, good, and fascinating, what does that have to do with eye drops? Well, remember that prostaglandins are slightly different than prostaglandin analogs. Prostaglandin analogs are basically a topical or something that you put on the skin version of prostaglandins, and they are slightly different both in form and function. People don't know exactly how, but they started being used and studied in people who have glaucoma. Glaucoma can be very damaging and impact your vision, and what it can cause is this pressure in the eye area that kind of presses all over. It can kind of obstruct the nerve that allows your eyes to see, and over time that can cause a lot of damage. And they found that topically applying prostaglandin analogs by dropping these drops into the eye could actually decrease the pressure in that eye, and therefore it could actually help with glaucoma. But here's the thing. While these prostaglandin analogs were being tested for glaucoma, they noticed that a lot of the people who were using them in either both eyes or just one had these beautiful, gorgeous, fabulous lashes, and they were like, oh, we can sell that. And you know what? They did. Now, Allergan is the brand name that created Latisse. Latisse is the brand name and Allergan is the parent company. This happens to be bimatoprost, which is the active ingredient inside of this, and this little guy is actually the prostaglandin analog that is doing the work. Now, here's the thing. Even though when they were using these eye drops and testing them and finally got them for over-the-counter use in Latisse, people also started noticing other side effects. And that's why you always hear Latisse being advertised like on TV, and it's like, might cause darkening of the eye. That's actually true. When they were studying Latisse, they found that it caused a little bit more pigmentation, not just in the iris, that donut-shaped colored ring in your eye, but also around the eye. When you apply this Latisse, it comes with like these little spoolie brushes, and you're meant to paint these onto the eye area. But some people saw that the areas that they painted it on had a little bit of darkening and pigmentation. Now, the pigmentation of the iris, the donut-shaped color ring, those didn't reverse when they stopped using it, but for some people, they did see a reversal of the pigmentation that was actually on the eyelash lid. And when you actually use Latisse, it says specifically, do not apply to the underlash area or like the under eye area, only apply to the top. Now here's the catch that isn't always talked about in those commercials, but it's actually not so surprising because we've seen it happen in the studies and tests that even brought this to the market. Some people noticed fat loss in the under eye area. Remember that we have these periorbital fat pads in our eye area. Now that sounds really crazy, but let's break down that word. Peri means around. Orbital is talking about the anatomy, the structure of the eye orbit, and fat pad is a fat pad. And those fat pads are actually really essential to our eyes looking lifted and full. And when some people feel that those fat pads are sagging, it can cause lumpiness, and someone might go for under eye filler to give back some of that volume. But people noticed that when using these prostaglandin analogs, specifically the prescription ones, because that's what's been tested clinically and they have to do tests to bring it to market to make that claim of longer lashes, they noticed, oh not in everyone, but in a small subset of people, yeah, their under eyes are looking a little bit more hollow. Now, this isn't just happening in the prescription stuff. This is also happening in things like Revitalash or GrandeLASH. And I actually need to check the Ordinary's lash serum. The lash and brow serum from the Ordinary I've heard has great reviews. I don't actually know if that's a prostaglandin analog or not, so I'm gonna check that out for you so that you don't have to. But people saw it in GrandeLASH too, and they thought, wait a minute, I'm using GrandeLASH-MD, this is over the counter, it's not prescription, why is this happening? Well, even though this is a slightly different active ingredient, this still has the prostaglandin analog in it. Even if scientists and doctors and researchers don't know exactly how they work, we know that they can cause changes in pigmentation. We know that they can cause changes in the growth of lashes. And yeah, we know that in some people, they can cause some of the fat in the skin to kind of deteriorate. And some people started drawing the conclusion and they said, wait a minute, I'm getting under eye filler now after I've been using this lash serum. What the f is going on? But based on the research, we actually shouldn't be that surprised by this. You see, there have been some medical studies that actually looked at people who were using lash serums, and they looked at the before and afters, not just of the lashes, but also of how hollow the under eye area is. And they found that those who are using a topical prostaglandin analog saw a little bit more of the hollowing in that area, which for some of those people was not desired. There was even Dr. Whitney Bowe, who's an amazing dermatologist on social media. She actually found a study where they looked at someone who was not using a lash enhancing serum for the purpose of lash enhancement. He was just using the drops for his eye conditions, but they saw that in the one eye that he used those drops, not only did he have fuller, thicker lashes, but yes, he had more of this hollowing out of the under eye area. Now, that hollowing out of the under eye area is what causes that bag and what causes that like hollow shadow to appear, right? Now, if you're losing volume, you can imagine if you have a balloon that's all blown up and you deflate it a little bit, it can get a little bit more wrinkly, right? So sometimes the wrinkles are kind of secondary to that volume loss. You have this volume here, the volume goes away, you're gonna be a little bit more wrinkly. And sometimes if the light is just hitting you in a certain way, you can see that under eye bag more apparently. Take a look. I mean, my under eye bags have not been perfect, especially after crying. But if you hold light differently, you can actually see different features of the face. That is the science of light and shadow. Now, here's the thing. Even though we've seen this happen, and even though we've seen it in before and afters, it doesn't happen to everyone. And the good news is that it might be reversible. If you stop using a prostaglandin analog, such as Latisse or GrandeLASH, there's a good chance that, number one, your lashes will go back to normal. Number two, that pigmentation that might be on the eyelid, it could fade away. Any changes to the color of the donut ring of the eye might be permanent. However, some people have noticed that those fat pads start to refill. At least that's what Dr. Whitney Bowe said on TikTok. Now, I don't know that personally because prostaglandin analogs, while I've studied prostaglandins in biochemistry, I don't exactly study or use these every day. I am not an ophthalmologist nor a dermatologist, although I intend to become one. So what does this mean for you? Well, number one, if you're using some of these, be aware that that could be a potential side effect. And for some people, that is not wanted. Number two, if you are using these, follow manufacturer's directions. Don't apply them in the under eye area. And a side effect of Latisse or any prostaglandin analog is that they can make the eyes a little itchy or irritated. So don't rub the eyes and get this like into the eye area, because again, we don't know exactly how these prostaglandin analogs are working. What this also means for you is talk to your doctor. Talk to your dermatologist, your ophthalmologist, talk to an expert that actually prescribed this to you or understands how prostaglandin analogs can work and can help advise you on what to do. You may want to stop using them and see what happens if you're really concerned by it, or you may want to take before and after pictures and track your progress. For some people, they have really, really puffy under eyes and they wouldn't actually mind a little bit of volume loss. And do keep in mind that this is something that people have noticed over years. This isn't something that they notice overnight and they wake up and it's like Sleepy Hollow on your face. waste the next day. And if you are someone who's been using this for years and you're starting to get under eye filler because you think you need it, consider maybe swapping this out for something else. I'm actually gonna go look into the Ordinary's lash serum because I'm actually very carfunkled about what the Ordinary uses for their lash and brow enhancing serum. And if you have these and you're like, I don't want to use them in my under eyes, like I don't want to waste, ask your doctor, ask your derm about the prescription stuff, but maybe you could put it in your eyebrows. Still works over here, okay? Okay. We love a good prostaglandin analog. And somebody, you know, I need to do this right now because it is not going to leave my little brain alone unless I find out what the Ordinary is using. Oh, you know what? I could actually ask the Ordinary directly. Should I go harass them with my questions? I finally have a way to directly reach out to them. They finally have social media. I want to go ask some spicy questions to their chemists. Who wants to come along with me? Anyways, always remember to stay hydrated, both orally and topically. Reapply that SPF and be beautiful both inside and out. I'm so curious about your experience with these, and check the comments for what others have to say as well. And if you want more of the craziness that's happening on TikTok, it's right here for you. Click here. Love you guys. Bye.